Hey everybody, it's been a while. Well, I cut out a video last weekend. I've got a little bit settled in. I should be able to push out these videos a lot more rapidly now. I apologize for the long times in between each one, but it's been a little bit rough. At any rate, we do have Darrell Brooks here. He's going to give his closing argument. And in so doing, he's going to make every mistake in the book. This dude tries to get himself convicted. Well, we'll have a lot of fun listening to him trying to give his final plea to the jury, and we'll have a lot more to say in the next few weeks. Hello out there. I am trying to get through.
With his powerful brainwaves cradled in the warmth of reasoning, it's time for Johnny Walker Dredd to straighten you out on a thing or two. Emanating all the way from exciting Las Vegas, Oklahoma, it's the Johnny Walker Dredd Show.
And if you continue in a blatant disregard of the requirement that you not reference in any way jury nullification, I may make that final determination outside the presence of the jury.
Oh, Darrell Brooks, the legal mastermind, he's going to go ahead and talk to the jury about jury nullification. So what does he do? He warns the judge ahead of time that he's going to do this. Why in the hell would you do that? If you're going to mention to the jury about jury nullification, you certainly don't want to prep the judge ahead of time on that.
Object to that, Your Honor.
Oh, there's a real shock.
All right, with that, let's bring the jury out.
For the record, may I respectfully request the legal reconsideration of your ruling? So is that a tacit agreement that you don't have to answer my objection, Your Honor?
I decline to reconsider.
I reject that ruling and take exception to that ruling, Your Honor.
Noted for the record.
For the record, may I request a legal or factual basis for your ruling, Your Honor?
Denied.
For the record, may I respectfully request a written judicial finding of facts and conclusion of law on this issue, Your Honor?
Denied.
For the record, may I respectfully move for interlocutory declaratory appeal on this matter?
I'm not the court to address that.
For the record, may I move to stay these proceedings until this instant matter is adjudicated by a court of competent jurisdiction, which this court has no subject matter jurisdiction.
Denied.
Now, I don't know where he got all these questions from. He must have downloaded it from Reddit or something like that. He's just reading them off. What the judge should have said was, interlocutory appeal. Why don't you tell me what that is? I would like to know what you're talking about here. And just watch him sputter. He doesn't even know what the term means. He's just downloaded this off Reddit and he's reading them off. He has no idea what he's doing.
Under based on what law or fact?
For the jury, please.
Based on what law or fact?
And by the way, that is standard sovereign citizen jurisdiction crap. They don't understand that yes, jurisdiction has to be proven, and you can raise that question any time during the trial, but it only has to be proven to the court's satisfaction. Unlike what a lot of judges think or have actually said, jurisdiction is not an element of a crime. It's an element of procedure. Therefore, it doesn't require proof beyond reasonable doubt. Just simply preponderance of evidence. So as long as the judge thinks that his or her court has jurisdiction and has reason to believe that, for example, a citation, that's good enough. And you can scream all you want. It doesn't matter. The judge does not have to prove jurisdiction to your satisfaction, only to his or her own. And she has done so. Clearly, this court has jurisdiction over murder cases.
Because I'm going to inform the jury of their power.
That's right. Tell the judge ahead of time that you're going to bring up the matter of jury nullification so that she can be prepared for it. Nice going.
They deserve to know.
Thank you, everyone. Please be seated. Go ahead, Mr. Brooks, your closing argument, please.
Notice that he forgot to put his belt on. Watch.
Good afternoon. It's been a long day.
And you're going to make it longer. Oh my God. I mean, you can't even think of what the first thing you're going to tell them?
First off, I'd just like to start by letting you guys know that it's a lot of information that you guys should be privy to, I believe.
I want to let you guys know you're not talking to your friends over at the local bar. This is a jury, and they're about to decide your fate. Come on, man. It's not time to be informal.
And one thing that I believe that you have not been privy to is the truth of your rights and your duties, being the jury. The fact that you and you alone have the power. Not well-prepared DAs with well-prepared and clearly rehearsed speeches and exhibits and a lot of theatrics.
In other words, all those things that lawyers prepare for. Yeah, that's what they do, all right. They prepare their arguments so that they sound professional and convincing. You ought to try it sometime.
Frankly, not the judge. You and you alone have the power. You and you alone decide what is truth and what isn't truth. You should be informed that you have the power to nullify any law that you don't agree with.
Objection. Move to strike misstatement.
Sustain.
Objection.
I will strike from the record the last statement made by the defendant. The jury will disregard it.
Which is clearly what I've been saying.
Oh, you really scored a point there. If I'm the judge, I would just let him go, and at the end, she can address the jury and say, he made mention of the fact that you can nullify any verdict for which you disagree with the law. That is not the case here. Your jury instructions specifically state the conditions under which you will issue a guilty or not guilty verdict.
I believe that not only is it fair, but it's essential that you be privy to all knowledge, not knowledge that certain people feel that you should hear and shouldn't hear.
At this point, if I'm the judge, I would go ahead and I stop here and I say, I need the jury to file out. And then I would turn to him and say, okay, you want all knowledge, huh? What about your past criminal record? Do you want that broadcast to the jury as well? According to you, they should be privy to everything. And here you are opening the door for all that to be admitted. So is that what you want to do? And of course, he would squeal like a stuck pig. That's not relevant. That's not relevant. Really, I thought that you wanted the jury to know everything. Now, I don't know if the judge can really do that, but whatever the case, I would be certainly tempted. This whole notion somehow that the jury should know everything is ridiculous. A large chunk of our trial procedures is designed to make sure that the jury is only informed of that which they need to be informed.
Disguised under the color of law. The fact of the matter is, just like I did with my opening statements, I don't have a well-prepared or rehearsed speech. I didn't look in the mirror and say certain points to myself over and over again to make sure I have them right or anything like that. I've chosen to speak from the heart.
Oh, no. Well, first of all, Guy, you're not writing a term paper here. This is a really bad time to procrastinate. Your life is on the line. You could go to prison for the rest of your life if you don't do well here. And what did you say? Well, I didn't prepare a speech and I didn't practice saying it. Good grief, man. There's a reason why lawyers do practice their speeches and why they do prepare closing arguments very carefully. And this speaking from the heart, well, you found out how far that got you.
In my opening statements, and now I'm going to speak from the heart.
Well, speak from the heart.
What you won't hear me do is argue facts.
At this point, you might as well sit down then, because that's all the jury can weigh.
And the reason you won't hear me argue facts,
because the facts don't point to your innocence,
is because I believe that it takes away from what should be recognized. The tragedy of this event. It should be recognized.
Well, you can recognize the tragedy of the event and consider the facts of the case. They're not mutually exclusive.
Trying to argue facts of this, facts of that, I'm not going to waste your time doing that. I'm not going to waste your time doing that.
Well, why not? You've been wasting our time doing everything else with all the objections and everything.
It's a little emotional. I apologize for the long pause.
Well, rather than apologizing, quit pausing. In his mind, he's thinking, boy, I got the jury going now. They truly feel that I'm rattled by everything that took place. They're starting to feel sorry for me. No.
It's hard to keep everything together emotionally. And honestly, I don't believe that I have any more tears left.
What do you mean you have no tears left? You haven't cried at all. Look, I'm not one of those people who says, oh, I don't see any tears. But you can't complain that you have no tears left if you haven't been crying.
It's been a hard year. For the families, mostly. And that should not be lost on anyone.
Though it hasn't been lost on the jury, they're thinking about that. Don't worry.
And it should be taken away. I said it before and I'll say it again. It's a lot of people that are healing, that are attempting to heal.
Yeah, the problem is that you did the killing.
That opens the door to talk about forgiveness for a little bit.
Forgiveness for who? You? Who are you going to be forgiving? Oh yeah, that's right. The other dude that you claimed was driving the truck. I suppose you're wanting the jury to forgive him, huh? Is that who you're wanting to forgive? Because if you're wanting the jury to forgive you, that's kind of an admission that you're guilty.
with every healing process, there comes a forgiving process.
Yeah, but during that time, there's also an imprisoning process.
It's not an easy thing for anyone. What you've been hearing from the prosecution, and not to take anything away from them, but let's call it what it is. You've been hearing a lot of rerun. Same things over and over and over. No different than when you turn on the radio and you first hear that song that you don't like when you first hear it.
Kind of like what we don't like when we hear you talking. Yeah, we get it. By the way, he had nothing prepared. This is all ad-lib. He didn't know what to say, so he came up with this weird repetition argument on the fly. As a jury member, I want the person to come out and say, I didn't do it, or I am not to blame, or whatever it is I did was fully justified. You want to hear that statement out front. Instead, he's going everywhere but that. And this is a problem with strategy. This is why he needed to prepare something the night before. First, establish to the jury doubt that you actually did it. Then you can get sympathy. You don't try to get sympathy first, then try to tell them that you're not guilty. It doesn't work very well, but that's what he's doing here.
But they play it so much that eventually you start saying the words to yourself before you even realize it. And then you sit and you go, I hate that song. Why am I singing it? That's what's been happening. Rerun over and over and over and over and over and over and over.
Yeah, we get it. We get it. We get it. Yeah.
Attempting to make things stick in your head that simply aren't true.
Like what? If certain facts have been presented that are not true, this would be a good time to tell them.
Why do I say, what am I saying? I say, look at the testimony. You know, the thing from the prosecution here has been intent. You know, the thing from the prosecution here has been intent.
That's because that's a major element of the charge.
We all know what's been said. We all know the picture that's been painted. Even the prosecution said themselves. How can you look in somebody's head and say, this is what they intended to do?
Well, it's done all the time. Charles Manson, we convicted him because we were pretty sure that he intended to kill those people. So it's not impossible.
You know, for a year, I've sat and gone through this. Feeling so powerless. You know, letting other people run with the narratives. Sitting back helpless while other people paint a picture that has zero truth. Zero
truth. In other words, nothing that was presented to the jury was true? Okay. You're trying to get the jury to feel sorry for you. They're not feeling sorry for you. Why? Because you have yet to tell the jury that you're innocent.
I understand about healing myself, tragedy, pain, all that. A lot of it, there's no need to get into. I myself in my own life have had to do a lot of healing.
Yeah, we don't care. We don't care about your past life and how it got you here. We care about, did you try to kill those people? That's what matters. The thing that pisses me off the most about this dude is it's all about him. Everything is about how he feels and how this has affected him. What about those people who lost family members? The ones who lost that young kid? How do they feel? He never even mentions them. Well, he did at the start with some abstract allusion to them. Something about, well, there's been a lot of pain out there.
As a man with children myself, I find it hard to believe that anyone who's really had conversations with me, spent time around me, would think for 1 second that this is an intentional act.
You find it hard to believe that people would think that this was an intentional act? That's the best you can do? You can't come out and say, it was not intentional, it was an accident. Instead, he casts it in terms of, well, it's hard to believe that I'd have done something so dastardly. Oh my God. Again, I don't think you could have written a worse speech if you tried.
I've never heard of someone intentionally trying to hurt someone while attempting to blow their horn.
We have you.
While attempting to alert people of their presence. Which brings me to more information that I believe that you should have been privy to.
So if your claim is that you couldn't help but run these people over, that you were hitting your horn to try to warn them so they could get out of the way, why don't you come out and say it? You're implying it. Your life is on the line here. It's important that the jury understand exactly what your argument is here. They shouldn't have to read between the lines.
And I'm sure that the prosecution will beg to differ. But the fact of the matter is, the vehicle in question, make and model of 2010, Ford Escape. The vehicle in question, actually 2008, 2009, and 2010 of that model was in fact recalled.
Objection, misstatement of the facts, facts not in evidence.
Was in fact-
Improper argument, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Was in fact recalled. Was in fact a class action lawsuit against Ford
Objection,
for those
facts not in
models,
evidence,
for
Your
those
Honor.
model vehicles.
Sustained, the juror will disregard.
Information that you should have been privy to.
They would have been if you would have followed normal courtroom procedures, but you didn't. And so the judge didn't allow you to enter that in as evidence. If there is any chance of an appeal, it's probably centering on that. But whatever the case, if you have an argument here that you couldn't stop the truck because the throttle stuck, gee, that's where I would want to take the stand so that I could enter that into the record. That would be my testimony. Sure, I might not be able to back it up with much, but at least I could enter it into the court record. But you goofed around and tried a silly little strategy where you pretended not to hear the judge ask you if you wanted to take the stand, and so you pissed away that opportunity. It's crazy. He's a sovereign citizen, and he passed up a chance to get on the stand and go blah, 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 subject matter jurisdiction, blah, 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 relevance and hearsay and blah, 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 free man of the land and all that crap. Sovereign citizens love those moments. They live for the opportunity to get up there and talk. And he pissed it away because he was wanting to play a game with the judge. The dude is the absolute definition of a moron.
That you weren't allowed to be privy to. Why? I don't know.
Well, she told you, but okay.
That information, malfunctioning throttle bodies.
Mr. Brooks, move on.
It's information that you should have been privy to. Vehicles that malfunction and accelerate not being able to be stopped.
Objection, that is.
It's information. It's information.
There's an objection. Hold on. Go ahead.
Move to strike statements by Mr.
Sorry for the
Brooks.
interruption.
They are facts, not an evidence, Your Honor, and it's a complete misstatement.
Sustained.
How's it a misstatement when I have the information?
Mr. Brooks, move on.
This is information that I feel like you needed to know. You should have known. Information that was taken away from you. Why? To prove a case? Information that you definitely should have been privy to.
Notice what he didn't say. He's complaining that there was a recall of these Ford Explorers that had issues with stuck throttle bodies. And he's complaining that that wasn't brought in as evidence. What he never said was that that was what happened. He never claimed that the throttle stuck. He's complaining about the evidence that it could have stuck was not entered into the record. I mean, if you're going to convince a jury that you're innocent, make a claim that something happened that explains why the truck got out of control in the first place. That should have been the first thing he said. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I want to tell you something. It is true that I was driving that SUV when it ran over these people, but it wasn't my fault. You have to believe me, the throttle stuck on the vehicle. I tried everything I could, but I could not stop the truck. I was even hitting the horn, trying to warn people to get out of the way. I am horrified by what happened, but it wasn't my fault. And then you could go into your spiel about the recall. He does everything wrong. Oh, by the way, so are you now admitting that you were driving the SUV? Or are you coming up with an excuse for that phantom person that you claimed was driving the SUV?
The DA says the defendant has an utter disregard for human life. Utter disregard for human life.
Yeah, I wouldn't repeat that too often in front of the jury. That's just angering them.
not realizing that they're talking about someone that has children.
Yeah, people who have children can still have utter disregard for human life. You're not winning with this argument.
Talking about someone that watched their children come out of the womb and be born into this world, cut the umbilical cord.
Too much information, dude. TMI, TMI.
Held them before their mom even did it. Moments that I'll never forget. And yet they say disregard, utter disregard for human life.
You're not the first parent to have killed somebody with no regard for human life. The jails are filled with people just like you, and the jury knows that. Just because you cut your kid's umbilical cord doesn't mean that you're impervious to sin.
They made reference to a rage, as if they were, or if this particular DA was right there, standing right there, as if this DA is a psychiatrist. I said to myself, what rage? What do you mean rage?
Rage as in driving over people intentionally. That's what they mean. Now, of course, I guess it's possible that a person could intentionally drive over people and be in a very calm, peaceful mood. Typically, that's not common. No, most of the time, those who are killing people are kind of pissed off while they're doing it. That's what they're talking about. And sure, there wasn't a psychologist there giving you an examination during this time, but we can sort of deduce that you must have been in a real bad sort of way to be doing something like that intentionally.
How can you characterize that? How can you have the audacity to diagnose what someone's brain is? Where it's at, what it's thinking, why it thinks the way it does. DA makes references to blocks of no one being injured, but then says it's intentional. You add that up with the supposed rage, the supposed intent to harm and kill, and it doesn't kick in until well within blocks.
Yeah, sure, why not?
And maybe it's just me, but I would think if I was characterizing someone with this intent to kill and this rage and this anger, then why weren't people immediately harmed? Why would someone with intent to kill and rage try to alert people of their presence, repeatedly honk their horn? You heard a detective, if you recall, testify that the vehicle that he observed was not only honking his horn, but was not speeding. So where does this rage kick in?
If it wasn't speeding, then how do you explain your theory that the throttle's stuck? Can't have both.
Where this insatiable intent to kill kick in.
Right shortly before you ran over the first person.
They speak as someone who's known someone for years. Which brings me back to the vehicle. What if the vehicle couldn't stop because of the malfunction?
Objection, fact, not in evidence.
What if the driver of the vehicle was unable to stop the vehicle?
What if? Dude, you're supposed to make the claim. Yeah, the prosecution will object to it, but if you're going to piss off the judge, why are you posing these things as rhetorical questions? You should be saying, I didn't do it, the throttle's stuck.
Because of that fact, what if the driver may have panicked?
Did you panic? That's what I'd be asking if I was on the jury.
Does that make the driver a crazed, or not crazed, a rage? Does that make the driver in a rage and intent on killing people? DA played exhibit 17. You don't see anyone struck in that vehicle. On that exhibit, you don't see anyone struck. Was someone who had this intent to kill, this rage, as she says. If that was their intent, wouldn't they have taken the opportunity to hit as many people as they could? Target people, mow down people.
Well, that's kind of what happened, Darrell. I mean, it's not like you just killed one or two people. You got a whole bunch of people killed and a whole lot more injured.
Reference was made to this vehicle, the damage. Says this was all caused by bodies, but then later turns around and says hits barricades and other objects. You've heard testimony about hearing loud crashes and things of that nature, but the DA wants you to believe that this all came from people.
So are you saying, Darrell, that, well, yeah, I may have ran them over, but it wasn't nearly as bad as what the detective said?
Evidence doesn't support that.
So we're now denying that people were killed by an SUV at all?
So I go back to trying to wrap my head around everything that's happened in the last year. Praying for those families, praying for the people that tragically lost their life, because that should not be lost either. The fact that there was lives lost.
Nobody's buying the argument that you're a true Christian.
And all the emphasis has been put on the alleged defendant. And the people have been disregarded. Makes me wonder, does the DA even care about those people?
By the way, you're not an alleged defendant. You are the defendant. That doesn't make you guilty, of course, but there's no doubt about it. You are the defendant.
There's been prayers going up every day. It's been suffering on both sides. It's been threats, hate mail. Because of the narratives that's been put out there. The misconceptions that have been put out there. The lies that have been put out there. Lies that have caused my children not to be able to go to school.
Cry me a river. Nobody cares. If you're trying to get the jury to feel sorry for you, you first have to establish that you're an innocent man.
To be bullied. For my mother to have to leave her home and stay at a hotel because she's afraid for her safety. Because she gets hate mail shoved through her mailbox. My nieces and nephews to fear for their safety.
Come on, man. Talk.
And what's been equally hard is not only having to answer the questions from my daughter, who was 7 at the time, my baby girl, who was 7 at the time, is now 8. Attempting to answer her questions that she's asking and still continue to shield her from what she sees, what she hears. Having a newborn son that I haven't even been able to meet. Haven't been able to hold, touch, kiss.
Yeah, maybe you should have thought about that before you ran over a whole bunch of people. And the little poor kid, Jackson, guess what? Nobody gets to hold him anymore either. But you don't even seem to care. It's all about you and what you can't do and how you've been affected and how your family has been affected.
Having to navigate everything that comes with this whole situation. While still attempting to wrap my head around it.
Well, you'll have plenty of time from this point on to think about it.
I can't honestly say how many times I've sat in my cell, especially during lights out, alone, where it's just you. And just been praying and asking myself, how could this happen?
Well, you did it. After all, your claim, sort of, is that the throttle body's stuck. Well, if that was really the truth, you'd know the answer to the question how this could happen. But that's not what happened, is it? Nobody believes that argument.
not just for the people, but for everybody involved, the community too. How could this happen? How? The hardest questions you can ask is those that don't have an answer.
True. The hardest questions you can ask are those that don't have an answer. Okay. Darrell, you're here to present an argument that you're innocent of the charges. What in the hell are you doing here?
No matter how much thinking you do, no matter how much you try to look at it from different perspectives and listen to other outside perspectives and listen to people that you trust and that you love, still coming up with nothing. But to think for 1 second, one question I never had to ask was if this was intentional. That's something that I never asked once. Because I know it wasn't.
Finally, 27 minutes into his speech, he finally comes out and says it was not intentional. Probably should have said that within the first 30 seconds of your speech. Then people might be more willing to listen to your attempts to get them to feel sorry for you.
As a matter of fact, it never even crossed my mind to even attempt to ask myself that, because I know it wasn't.
And by the way, it sounds like he is admitting that he was the actual driver. He's claiming it wasn't intentional, which sort of implies that he was really driving the SUV. So why were you trying to establish doubt in the jury's minds about whether you were driving the SUV when you cross-examined witnesses on the stand?
And I know sometimes during this trial probably doesn't show. Maybe hard to believe. But trust me when I say no one outside of the families that had to go through this, no one's heart is more in pieces than mine.
Trust you? Why should we trust you? And those people who lost their little kid, they would probably beg to differ here.
So again, I go back to all these exhibits. Go back to everything that's been shown, everything that's been testified to.
All those things that point to your guilt.
Everything you've heard during this whole process, this trial. And again, I say the same thing that I said earlier. Same thing I said in opening statements. I'm not reading from any paper, any books.
You don't get points from the jury because you didn't refer to a piece of paper while you were talking.
Everything you've heard in opening statements, everything you're hearing now is from right here.
So what?
Everything. You have the decision. You and you alone. All of you. You have the decision. I'm sure you've taken a lot of notes during this process. Some days are longer than others. A lot of movement in and out of the courtroom for various reasons.
Dude, are you just trying to prolong this?
Remember the power that you have.
Yeah, they're not going to forget. They can't wait to use it, in fact.
Don't for 1 second let it be taken away from you. I can never understand the position of sitting on the jury in something of this magnitude. So I'm sure there's a lot of pressure. I pray that the right decision is made. The right decision. It's almost like that message, well, not message, but that writing when we're in our vehicles and we got that rearview mirror and it said things are closer than they appear. But it's also another way of saying sometimes things aren't as they appear. I can't speak for anyone else, but me, myself, I believe in Jesus Christ. That's how I was raised. That's what I believe in. None of us are perfect. But I try every day to make sure that I acknowledge him. That's why every time I step in this courtroom, I have my Bible with me everywhere I go.
Okay. So what? Dude, I mean, this is sort of like the Freemasons and flashing their ring or something like that, or making the secret symbol. And the idea behind it is, well, There's going to be somebody in the jury that's going to recognize that and say, I can't put away a good Christian for life. You were wrong. Dragging a Bible into this was in really poor taste.
I even read it on breaks, recesses. This is not something that started at the beginning of this incident. This is something that has been instilled in me since I came out of the womb.
I'm a lifelong Christian. Therefore, don't send me to prison.
This is how my family lives their life. This is how we was raised. For whatever mistakes that I myself have made in my life, I've made peace with God.
Did you make peace with the people that you hurt? Because that's what the jury cares about.
Made peace. I'm happy to say that my conscience is clear.
Oh, that was not a smart thing to say. In other words, I have no remorse.
And because I believe, I trust him with my life. Nobody will never know why it was his will for this to happen.
You're blaming God for sending you on a rampage into a crowd of people. It's God's fault. I don't know why he made me do this. Oh, wait a minute. I should get this right. God is who made the throttle body stick. That makes sense.
A lot of lives were changed that day, mine included.
A lot of lives were lost, actually, not just changed.
God's way is not our own. And no matter how much sometimes we want to question, we have to have faith.
Now you're preaching to the jury. Okay.
Look inside yourself. Look inside yourself and make the right decision.
They're all going, yep, not a problem. In fact, we can make that decision right now.
Look inside your heart. You have everything in your hands now. Everything. Do what's right. Do what's right. Don't let the smoke and mirrors take away your power. Don't let the theatrics take.
The theatrics? Oh, look who's talking.
Take away your power. Each and every one of you has a decision. Do what's right. Make the right decision.
By the way, if you're thinking right now, God, I wish you'd just shut up, the jury is too. Enough. I can't deal with it anymore. The extraordinarily long pauses because he didn't prepare. He doesn't know what to say. He's drawn a blank. Incredible. So what did we learn? First of all, if you're going to get the jury on your side, you have to establish your innocence up front. Because while you're complaining about how you've been treated and how bad your life is, it does little good if the jury thinks that you're guilty. Could a really good lawyer gotten him out of this? Possibly. There was the issue with the throttle body on the Ford Explorer, and so a competent lawyer could have somehow may have gotten that into the evidence pile into discovery, and then could have leaned on that during the closing arguments, saying that there is some doubt about his intent in this case, and maybe gotten a couple of jurors to side with him. Might have had a mistrial on account of it, a hung jury. Instead, he did everything wrong. First, he tried to, while cross-examining witnesses, establish that maybe he wasn't the one actually driving. But during the closing arguments, he pretty much all but admitted that he was driving, but it wasn't his intent to hurt anybody. And while he had this explanation of the throttle body sticking, he didn't come out and actually say that's what happened until almost the very end. Darrell Brooks' real problem is that he's just an asshole. And it caught up to him. I'll talk a lot more about Darrell Brooks and this whole sovereign citizen thing in upcoming videos. Like my video, subscribe to my channel.